it's more fun to be alive and do another jump that is not as exciting as the one that's gonna kill you.
I would describe you as a wingsuit flyer, is that accurate?
That is correct. I would say like wingsuit flying or wingsuit base jumping was pretty much what made my name known, but now I would call myself more as an extreme sport athlete, as I'm doing speed flying, skydiving, base jumping and big wave surfing. So it's like, I like to combine a lot of things. A wingsuit is actually a suit that is made of nylon, or parachute fabric. And it's pretty much like you spread your legs, and between your legs there's a wing. You spread your arms, and down from your arms to your legs are another set of wings. And then when you jump off, for example, a cliff, you have like small inlets on each wing of the suit.
Okay.
And this makes, because the suit is 2 layers, so this makes the suit inflate. And then once you're flying, or once you jump off the cliff, the suit inflates and becomes solid. If you have seen a video of the place, you just look at the video and you hike up and you jump. If you never checked it out before, you hike up, you do the, you come up, you throw some rocks to see if the vertical of the wall is big enough for you to jump off without hitting the ground before you start to fly. So once you know that, you can jump, and then once you jump, you just, you take a look at the terrain and you just, you visualize while you're flying, and then on the second jump you can maybe go a little bit closer to the terrain.
When did you first do this?
The first jump I had was in 2008, like the first base jump. But then I had my first skydive in 2007.
Wow, okay. How old were you then?
I was 21 when I started skydiving, and yeah, 22. Or I just turned 20, yeah, I did turn 22, 23. I'm not quite sure actually.
Wow. And you're turning 30 this year?
Yeah, 30 this summer.
How's that feel?
Feels good.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm just excited. Like, the longer you make it, the more excited I am, So for us as extreme sport athletes, we really appreciate every single year that we get to share with the people we love, doing what we love.
To go from 21 to 30, and to get, to do what you've done, that strikes me as being very impressive. How does it feel to you?
It feels very normal, actually. Like, I don't I know that what I do is amazing, and we can do amazing stuff, and we can create content that is spectacular. But I always, I always have my feet planted on the ground, and I try to be as professional as I can on what I'm doing. So I try to train as much as I can, either if it's skydiving or surfing, or just stay active and stay current in what I do, so I don't do any mistakes. And for me, this is pretty much like the priority #1, and then all the other things, I think about it sometimes, and I'm like, oh, it's cool, like I spend my 20s wise.
Yeah.
And I was thinking back then, like, oh, maybe this is something that's gonna kill me before I'm 30, but so far it's going good, and I hope it's gonna stay like that for a long time.
Do you think you'll ever consciously stop?
Not extreme sport in general. I would not stop. I could maybe stop flying for a little bit and then do something else. Like, for example, now that I'm switching between all these different sports, I wouldn't have a problem with stopping, for example, wingsuit flying, but at the same time, it's something I would miss. Even though it's like, I would maybe cut down on the risk and do more, let's say, heli jumps, and then just fly with the wingsuit instead of jumping from the actual cliff. But these are all things that, your life kind of, whatever your life makes you want to do, like, you change. The older you get, you change. But for me, this is my job, it's my passion, and it's something that kind of made everything else possible for me. So I don't want to stop that until there is a reason for me to stop. Like, if for example, I get 2 kids or whatever, and I've made enough money to take care of these kids for the rest of my life without having to ever struggle with that, and actually do full time with that, yeah, I would maybe consider quitting. But up until then, like,
For the moment,
yeah, I'm gonna have fun. Like in the end, I love to do big projects, and I love to use my sports as a way to make money and make a living. So I would always be hungry for that, but I'm cutting down a lot on the risk factor. So everything I do now is more like, okay, if there's a big project, I will do it, and I will do it in the most safe way possible, and make it look as spectacular as possible.
Is that a recent thing, cutting down on the risks, or did that start to occur to you?
Last 3 years.
Oh, 3 years.
Yeah, like back in the days, I was more like, you know, charge, and then eventually you get to the point where you know that if you keep doing that, you will eventually end it, you know, because we're humans, we're always gonna do mistakes, you know. You can't drive on the freeway in 200 every single day. Eventually you will hit something, you know. So it's the same for wingsuit flying, or if you just push. So now I try to, you know, stay as focused and as current as I can in different sports, but always doing, you know, like do it when it feels the right. So the wingsuit proximity stuff, do it when the end of the season where you feel really strong and you feel really current. Then, and not just like show up on an exit tomorrow and be like, yeah, let's go, you know, like I did 2 years ago.
Right.
Because those are the moments when it can go bad.
How fit do you have to be to do this?
Not particularly any fit at all.
That's encouraging.
Yeah, and, you know, like there's a lot of heavy guys that are not fit at all that does this.
Right.
Of course, the less fit you are, the more struggle you're gonna have to make it up on the mountain.
But it looks like you have to be quite strong to hold that position for that long.
Not that much, because with the wingsuits today, they're really self-flown as well, a lot of them. So, you know, you will get to the point where eventually you get tired, but that will be after you. Then the ground is already up, you know, the air time.
So as long as you can get over the throwing yourself off things part.
Yeah, you have to get up on the cliff and be able to throw yourself off the cliff mentally. It's more a mental sport than a physical sport.
Okay.
For a lot of people, it's, you know, mentally demanding to stand on the edge and
jump.
Yeah, so that's the thing that kind of separates the people from doing it and not doing it.
So other than that, it's relatively accessible, as long as you can afford the
super
equipment.
accessible, but you know, again, you have to start skydiving and you have to really train a lot skydiving before you do it. So you have people that just want to go straight into it, but they usually hurt themselves really, really fast.
Because you do proximity flying, which is one step further.
Yeah, which is like the kind of like the final step in base jumping, where you fly your wingsuit between trees and down gullies and low above the ground. So if the ground like this, you swoop the ground with your wings, you know.
It's incredibly dangerous.
I would say it is, depending on the pilot. Like,
right.
if you're a reckless person, then this sport is definitely not for you. Like, the problem with us is that we have a sport where, from the outside perspective, people think we're crazy. You know, we actually met some guys up on the mountain today, and we had lunch. Like, they were sitting on the same table, and we started talking to them, and they were like so surprised that we were so nice and calm, you know, even though we were doing these extreme activities. Because in everybody's mind, we're crazy. And the problem is that when you think that we're crazy, you will have crazy people coming to the sport. Because they also think that, oh yeah, I'm crazy too, so I can do this. And that's the problem, you know, because if you're crazy in this sport, you will be dead within a year.
It requires a huge amount of discipline.
Yeah, and like, you know, being crazy, then you will eventually put yourself in a dangerous and lethal situation.
I heard it said of you that you always had this boundless childish energy, but when it came to the jumps, you were very, very strict.
Yeah, no, I'm more strict on the jumps than I am on other things, you know. Now, when it comes to jumps and stuff, then I like to be. I really don't want to die from doing it, you know. Even though we all like, if you die living your dream, it's fine. But
Yeah.
I just don't want that sport to kill me. Like a car accident is fine, but
I mean, how do you feel about the mortality rate of the sport, if you don't mind me asking? Because that's what people will be thinking about.
It's definitely bad, you know. Like, it's definitely bad when you look at continuously that people die throughout the year, but also the fact that you know a lot of these people all the time, you know, that's the worst part about it. Even though, like, in the end, there is not really a problem with the fact that people on this earth dies, because if we can die from doing that, I mean, if you know, turn it the other way around. If we accept, because that's pretty much what all of us do that live in the Western world, we accept that kids in Africa starve to death.
Yes.
So why would it be wrong that base jumpers that throw themselves off a cliff having the time of their life die? It doesn't really make sense, you know, because society accepts the fact that poor people and people that are not as fortunate, or people in war, you know, we accept it all the time. We're like voting for people to do more damage, you know. And this is the thing, is like, so in our sport, we're like, okay, we're living the dream, and we're living every single day as it is the last. And we share, like, our family, like, you wouldn't notice if you hang out a year with base jumpers, that you will see like the connection between these people, and how different we live our lives, you know, in terms of like kind of living on a pink cloud in a fairy tale. And we are way more acceptance of death than other people. Like, I don't have a problem with death at all, you know, and this has something that has been developed through me living the life I'm living and seeing friends die every single year, you know. Like, eventually it becomes such a normal thing that you just have to either accept it, or you have to quit and just disconnect from the entire community. So, and I wouldn't want to do that, because that would just be like escaping something that you can't really escape, but you're the only one losing the opportunity to be a part of something that is beautiful, because you're the one running away, but the other guys are still going to keep jumping, and they're still going to have accidents. So you might as well just stick around and hope that you can do it as long as possible, you know. Because life is like, you know, life is a roller coaster. And I mean, I could have, and sometimes I swap it around. So let's say I would have chosen something completely different. I would have chosen, yeah, I'm gonna have the safe life, I'm gonna do the office, I'm gonna make money on doing my graphic design stuff. Boom, maybe at age 27, I would have been going on a trip somewhere that led to something that maybe was a car accident or whatever, you know. You never know, because your life has like, whatever you choose to do, the next thing gets affected by the previous choice. So, you know, there is no kind of, you never know. And let's say I didn't choose this. I could have been dead 3 years ago already, you know. We don't know that.
Yeah.
So maybe I made it further by actually choosing the more dangerous lifestyle. I don't know. But I'm here, I'm almost 30, so I'm like, at least I'm going somewhere, you know?
I wanted to ask about the prevalence of wingsuit and extreme sports in media. You did a music video with Rudimental, where you actually did some acting.
Yeah, I actually did some acting in that one. Not much acting. It's more or less acting without speaking, but yeah, that was like some acting there, and that was a really cool project to be a part of, actually.
It's a great video.
Yeah, and those guys, like the guys that are making it as well, you know, he's an amazing producer, and extremely talented with the way he uses, or the way he builds the story, you know, by the images.
I was asked by someone to ask you whether your childhood was in any way reminiscent of the childhood in...
No, it was like, this is something that they have kind of created. Even though I would say that my childhood was like that for maybe a couple of times, depending on where I went. Like before I became, because in the beginning of my when I started at school, I had it like that for maybe a month. And then I managed to be like, hey, fuck this, you know, like, sorry about that, but... And then I became a part of those guys that were doing it, you know?
Oh.
So then I became...
That's a different moral to that story, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a different moral. I became one of those guys with them. Not that we did much bad stuff, but, you know, that was the way for me to get into the cool group, you know? And I knew that, you know, I've always been like really, ever since I was a child, to kind of analyze the way, you know, in terms of psychological, you know, if you are like that, yeah, you're gonna be picked on. But if you're like, hey guys, you know, let me show you something even crazier than what you guys do, and then you become the cool kid, you know, like once we were kids, and that made it so that I didn't have that way of growing up. But then I started, you know, playing basketball and stuff, and I was in a different, you know how it is when you grow up in like smaller villages, and then you have like this place and then this place, and they're kind of rivals, but they're in the same area, but they're like, these guys are idiots, blah blah blah, you know. And when I was playing basketball with that team from the other part, it was kind of like, okay, after a year I said, okay, you know what, skip it, I'm gonna go and do something more fun, and I started extreme sports.
That was at dirt bikes?
Yeah, I started, or like snowboarding, dirt bikes, whatever pretty much made me like more excited, because all those team playing and stuff, that was never anything for me. So of course those guys had to bully me out of the team to make it like, which was fine, I get it, you know, but that was also good for me, because then I got to something that was way more amazing. A lot of people are tripping on the, aren't you guys afraid of dying and blah, blah, blah. And I'm always like, you know, when you're born, you're born with an empty glass. You know, everybody's born with an empty glass. And you're gonna fill this glass up, you know, with love, with experiences, with, you know, travels, whatever you want to fill it up with, you know. And now I'm maybe at soon 30, and I have filled up hundreds of glass that are just pouring over. I've done so much and so many adventures that I don't even remember half of them since these last 9 years. And then I meet people that are like, yeah, but he died so young. And I'm like, yeah, no, not exactly. Because the fact of it is a lot of people these days are not really living, you know, like they live here and their job is there. Their friends are within this circle here. And they have maybe their cabin over here, and they have their grocery store here. And within this circle, it's where they live their lives. And maybe some of them do the same thing for 40 years. You haven't, like, in those 40 years, you haven't grown a single bit as a human being. You have only been doing the same thing over and over, meeting the same people, shopping at the same place, eating the same food, driving around the same area, and once in a while you have explored another country or something like that, you know. I'm talking like the more extreme opposite. And these people would maybe say to us like, oh yeah, now I'm 80 and I'm so old and wise. But the fact is that us that are 30 and has been traveling the entire world for 10 years and been meeting numerous of people and doing all these different things, we have way more knowledge of life than any of these other guys. And we have lived way more than any of those have done, you know? So our glass has been filled up while his glass is maybe half full and he has done one glass. So this is the difference when a lot of people are like, he dies so young, but it's like, no, it's not the truth, because age is only, it's only a number, but what have you filled that lifetime with, you know? Yeah. And that's what it all comes down to. So, I mean, even if I would have died tomorrow, I would still have been living more than a lot of the people I grew up with that will maybe make it to their 80, you know? In terms of everything we do, all the adventures, all the different cultures, the different people you meet, and all of that really actually change you as a human. Because going to the same work or talking with the same people, that's not going to change anything, you know? That's just going to be the same loop of the continuous, like, it's the same discussions about either if it's politics or a TV show or something on work, you know? And I saw this when I was working as a graphic designer for 2 years. It was always this repeat, you know? It was like, okay, I go to work and then we're talking about that thing today, and then next week we're talking about that thing, but then the next week after we're going back to that. And it's only like, okay, what are we reading in a newspaper? Okay, now let's talk about that, you know? And it's not like meeting new people and really like getting into like, what's your story, you know? Like listening to life stories of other people and sharing moments and sharing stuff that most people just look on Facebook, you know? Because that's what people love to do now. They love to look at a reproduction of life. You know, it's like they look at these videos and they look amazing or whatever, but we are the ones that are lucky enough to be able to create it and see it in 3D when we're there and feeling the nerves, like, you know, feeling, living on that edge, like, ooh, you know, pushing the humans forward. Like if you look back in history, just look at the Wright brothers. When those guys started that airplane thingy, like when they were starting to like, okay, let's go.
The airplane thing.
Yeah, the airplane thing. When they actually started, you know, really tried to invent airplanes and take off from the ground for the first time, like people looked at them and just shook their head and be like, fuck, these guys are idiots. These guys are crazy. And today, people sit in an airplane on the runway complaining that the airplane is fucking half. Oh, sorry.
It's all right. No, this is good.
Yeah,
this is
then
deep stuff.
Yeah, this is deep stuff. And then they're sitting there on the runway, and they're complaining that the airplane is 30 minutes late. And I'm like, dude, do you know that you're sitting inside a steel tube with jet engines, and you can just like fly wherever you want to go? And you know, and this is only in like 100 years, you know? And if those guys didn't have the guts to do it and actually just go against what everybody said, that you can't do it, it's not gonna work, you guys are stupid, you guys are gonna die, blah, 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 we wouldn't be as lucky today, flying around the world, having a blast, you know? And this is like, the same goes for us, of course. Our sport is not really gonna benefit the mass humans the same way as the invention of an airplane. But at the same time, we're pushing the evolution of the human species forward by adapting to human flight. Because in the end, if you look 1,000 years ahead from now, if you can't fly, well, then you're gonna be stuck, you know? Like, you have to be able to fly eventually, either if it's with the drones or if it's with jetpacks, or like eventually it just becomes more and more normal, because transport on the ground is slower than transport in the air. So somebody gotta do it. If no one does it, then of course we can still just look at the birds and be like, yeah, that's cool.
When it comes to making money, do you get enough from doing this to live?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, for sure.
It's from sponsorships.
Yeah, like you have to, like, sponsors is one thing, but you also have to generate by doing projects or doing TV shows or doing commercials, or
which you instigate.
Yeah, or for example, you do when the guys are doing the stuff for Point Break.
Right.
You know, so this is like sponsors alone, it would work, but it would be tight. It would be like, okay, I would have to cut down on a lot of expenses to be able to just live off sponsorship. But when you mix it with everything we do, then it's quite a lucrative business.
Really?
Yeah.
Presumably in addition to the money that you get paid, they also pay for you to go to all of these different places and do the jumps.
Well, like the sponsors, they pay, you know, one fee that is pretty much like your salary. But then, for example, if someone calls me and say, yeah, we got to do a stunt for, let's say, for example, Point Break, then that is something that has nothing to do with your sponsors. Then you're hired as a professional stuntman to do this job for a movie. And the same goes when you do commercials or when we, for example, we're shooting now the virtual reality content for this new camera, then we're getting paid for creating content for them. And then you have sponsors that will just give you money for them to have their logo. So, for example, in my case with Red Bull, they pay me a yearly fee for me to wear the cap and or the helmet, and also the wingsuit. And then I use my wingsuit in a TV show, and I use my wingsuit, you know, for fun jumps or whatever we do. But if I go and do a commercial for, let's say, Vodafone, then I use not a Red Bull suit. So then, you know,
Vodafone might not like that.
So for that, I would use something that is strictly for the brand that I'm doing, but it can't be something that is against the brand I'm sponsored by, of course, you know. So I can't be doing a commercial for Monster, if you know what I mean. So this is the thing that makes the world or our work more lucrative, in terms of that we can be freelance at the same time as we're sponsored athletes. But then you look at, for example, skiers, they're doing so much with that one thing, and then, you know, they have to train, they have to spend all this time on the training and do all different sorts of work related to their sport. So a lot of their time goes to that, while for us, we're lucky to, you know, we can do a skydiving stunt, or we can do a base jumping stunt, or we can do a speed flying stunt. And you have all these different, you know, margins and opportunities.
3 tips for someone who's thinking about getting into extreme sports. What would you say are your top 3 tips?
If you want to get into skydiving, or most of the people that today wants to get into skydiving, is because they have been seeing wingsuit videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
And if you want to get into that, then period, go straight into skydiving and grow in that sport. You know, do as many jumps as you can. Back in the days, we said, yeah, just do 200 jumps and you're fine for base jumping. Nowadays, I would maybe say 500, and 300 of them being wingsuit, just because people nowadays wants to become wingsuit base jumpers, and not, back in the days, base jumping was just like jumping off and falling off the cliff, and maybe go a little bit forward with some tracking. So then that was enough with 200 jumps. But today, the other level of what you want to achieve is much higher than what 200 jumps can really give you. So I would say that, you know, nowadays, you know, just grow in the sport of skydiving and fly wind tunnel and do a lot of jumps, mix it up, start it with tracking, and then go over to wingsuit flying and mix in between free flying and wingsuit and tracking, and, you know, do all these different things.
Jokke Sommer, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.